Welcome to Felix and Friends. And before we dive into today's mind-blowing story that is so big that Winston's going to have to lie down, I want to share with you why I actually make these videos. My mission is to help 1 million people achieve financial freedom, break free from salary slavery to live off their investments and their trading incomes instead, because life's pretty good that way, isn't it, Winston? He agrees. We literally just came back from the beach. So I've developed a simple 3-step trading protocol from my banking experience that takes just 2 to 3 hours a week. And this month alone, we're up like 20% on our trading account. If you want to learn how, join my free webinar on Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time at felixfriends.org/webinar. Now let's jump into a prediction that's shaking, literally shaking, the foundations of tech and finance. Buckle up, because this is a big story and we intend to take you on a bit of a ride here. It's June 27th, 2024. A tweet predicts that by 2034, Tesla will operate 100 million robotaxis and over 1 billion Optimus robots with a stock value of $24 trillion. And what does the CEO and largest shareholder of Tesla say? Elon Musk himself says it's probably an accurate prediction. But what does this really mean? Let's break it down. But before we dive into the numbers, let's take a step back in time. Tesla's journey has been marked by pretty bold predictions and equally bold skepticism. In 2018, when Tesla unveiled that Elon Musk's ambitious compensation plan tied to growing the company's market cap to 650 billion, well, the skeptics were out in force. The New York Times called it the boldest pay plan in corporate history, with one compensation consulting saying it's hard to see how even Elon Musk could achieve all of those targets. Bloomberg ran an article titled Elon Musk's 55 billion gamble, suggesting the goals were so ambitious they were essentially unreachable. And CNBC's Jim Cramer famously said in 2019, I think he, Elon Musk, is going to have to raise capital. He's not going to be able to sell enough cars. And yet, by January 2023, Tesla had achieved all but one of the operational milestones in that compensation plan, growing its market cap to over 600 billion. Now, history seems to be repeating itself once again. We're faced with predictions that seem impossible, but this time the stakes are even higher. To reach this valuation, Tesla would need to generate a staggering 15 trillion with a T in annual revenue. That's 25 times Walmart, which is the world's largest company by revenue today. It's a number so large, it's kind of hard to comprehend, but let's put it into perspective. Consider Uber. Their 5 million drivers globally generate about 32 billion in revenue. Now imagine replacing each of those drivers with a robotaxi that works 24/7, never needs a break, and generates nearly 10 times the revenue. That's the scale we're talking about here with Tesla's prediction. But wait, there is more. Remember when robot arms were first introduced in car factories? In the 1970s, there were only 200 robot arms in the entire US. In 1990, that number had grown to 20,000 in the automotive industry alone, and it transformed manufacturing. Now brace yourself for this. Tesla is predicting not just 20,000, not even a million, but 1 billion Optimus robots by 2035. That's a scale of automation that would make the industrial robot revolution look like a warm-up act. But perhaps the closest parallel we can draw is the adoption of the personal computer in companies. In 1980, there were about 1 million PCs globally. By 2000, that number had exploded to 500 million. It took 20 years for PCs to transform the business world. And here is where it gets truly mind-blowing. Tesla's prediction suggests a similar or even greater transformation in just 10 years. It's as if we're witnessing the PC revolution, the industrial robot revolution, and the rise of ride-sharing platforms all at once, but on steroids. The economic implications are staggering. We're talking about the potential creation of entirely new industries, a reshaping of the global job market, and productivity gains that would dwarf anything that we've seen before. But here is the million-dollar or perhaps billion-dollar question, or maybe even the $24 trillion question. Is this prediction realistic, or is it just a wild dream? Let's break down Tesla's potential revenue streams. So, robotaxis. We get 100 million robotaxis out there. Say they generate $50,000 each annually. That's $5 trillion in revenue. Robots. You get 1 billion robots out and just say they generate conservatively $10,000 each. I think it could be more in industrial applications in certain places, maybe a little less in households. That's, make it the math simple, another $10 trillion. So now Tesla would have a staggering 15 trillion revenue. See, I've struggled to get the numbers right because they're sort of beyond what I think about usually. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Let's look at two scenarios for profitability. Scenario one, conservative margins. Say we have an operating margin of 27%, basically a little higher for the robotaxis, a little bit lower for the robots. That would bring us a 4 trillion operating profit. Say there's a 20% tax rate, you get to about $3.2 trillion. If you get a PE of, say, 30, well, you get a market cap of 97 trillion. But wait, we only needed 24 trillion. So maybe we were a little bit too bullish on the PE multiple there. So we need a PE multiple of 7. That doesn't seem so crazy now, does it? Now let's look at a more optimistic scenario, the sort of a Cathy Wood scenario of bullishness, higher margins. So we're now looking at 38% operating margins, and that's very similar to what Apple has right now, which is where I plugged the number from. And that would bring us 5.7 trillion in operating profit, still pay 20% tax, although if Trump gets in, that might be a little bit less. So say after tax, they make 4.5 trillion. Again, a PE of 30 would get us a 136 trillion market cap, which is probably a little unrealistic. That's 5 times more than we need, but obviously we could just have a much lower PE ratio here. So if they can achieve the scale they're predicting and maintain margins similar to today's tech giants, the potential upside could actually be more enormous than predicted. But here's the kicker. Achieving these numbers would require Tesla to generate more revenue than the entire GDP of the United States. It's a scale that's kind of difficult to fathom. But remember, the prediction is for 2034, a world that could look very, very different from today, just as the smartphone revolution created entirely new markets and revenue streams. Tesla robots could reshape the global economy in ways we can't yet imagine. So for investors, you and me, this presents both kind of a tantalizing opportunity, potentially a little bit daunting. You know, what if we miss out on it? And how do we diversify and so on? The potential is astronomical in terms of returns, but so are the risks, right? Tesla would need to execute flawlessly on a scale never before seen in human history. And as we've seen, Tesla has a history of proving its doubters wrong, but the scale of this new prediction does dwarf anything that we have seen before. From reaching production targets that skeptics said were impossible to becoming the most valuable car company in the world, Tesla has consistently defied its critics. And that's not to talk about SpaceX and things like that, which sit outside of Tesla. But here is the real 24 trillion question. Can they do it again? Can Tesla prove the skeptics wrong on a scale that's hard to comprehend even for people who might really like Tesla? I think history has shown us time and time again that what seems impossible today can become a reality tomorrow. And if there is one person I'd bet on, it would be Elon Musk. look back at the rise of the internet, the smartphone, all of those were far-fetched until they weren't. The introduction of the motor car was a far-fetched thing that was widely rejected at the time, as was the telephone and the TV and everything else. It's sort of come out in the last 100 years or so. So we stand here on the brink of what could be the next great technological leap. It does tend to leave us with a little bit more questions than answers. Will Tesla's vision of a robot-powered future really come to pass? Or will there be obstacles that'll slow us down? Time will tell. One thing's for sure certain, though, the next decade should prove to be one of the most transformative periods in human history and one of the most exciting for us as investors. What I've learned over the last 20 years investing and trading is that there is one thing that's guaranteed, and that's change. And that can often come faster and bigger than you expected. And the real question is, are you ready for change? Is your portfolio ready for it? Is your skill set ready for it? I'm offering you a free live trading training this Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time to teach you the same 3-step trading protocol that it's yielding pretty impressive results for our community. So don't miss out on that. Take control of your financial skill sets. It's like a skill like any other. Go and sign up at felixfriends.org/webinar. If you enjoyed this video, share it with a friend or even a golden retriever. I thank you for tuning in. See you on the next one. Winston just said to me, Felix, do you think a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money on this whole AI rally, picking the wrong thing and not realizing what stage we're in and how that's going to affect things? And I said, you know what, Winston, that's actually a really, really good idea. Let's walk people through that, because the money